Well, hi everyone, welcome to today's vlog, and we're going to be looking at one of the key ideas within Christianity, if you like. That's the idea of the ascension, and we're going to look at Acts chapter 1 verses 1 to 11. Now, the whole idea of ascension has really caused Christians, particularly in the modern times, quite some difficulty. We get very confused about it. We read in Acts chapter 1 that Jesus was taken up through the clouds, and we sort of take this literally. And what's a shame is that if we knew our Old Testament particularly, we would know that heaven is never meant to be millions of miles away from earth, and indeed from all creation, as though it was the other side or outside of the universe. What's much closer to the Hebrew understanding of things is that heaven and earth are interwoven, almost like different dimensions, but of the same creation. Some of you who know the Celtic artwork will know what that looks like, of the different strands all interwoven with one another. This would be a much better understanding, really, of where heaven is, and indeed then what happened to Jesus when he ascended. Why is that important? Well, we often get confused partly in our own journey of life and death and of heaven. What happens to us is that we all eventually will die, hopefully not too soon, but then we ascend and we go to be with God in heaven, not just above the clouds. I know some people look up and they even name stars after grandma or granddad, and I sort of get that. But really, heaven is much closer than the stars. It is as close as our very breath. We then will be resurrected, which means when Jesus returns, what we call loosely the second coming, Jesus will bring heaven to earth. Not down from the clouds, but actually that wonderful heaven and creation will be interwoven into one new creation. This is the dream that God seems to have. And if you want to look that up, look up Revelation chapter 21 and 22. Why does all this matter? Well, firstly, because Jesus ascended and went to be with God in heaven, then the idea is that so will we be able to ascend and actually to be with God in heaven. So that's quite important just in itself. But the next thing, which is really important, is when we look at what is Jesus doing in heaven right now? I wonder what you would think. Is he sat around having an enjoyable time with God? Well, all the passages throughout the Bible are very clear about this. He's praying for the world, and he's praying for us. The idea is that he's interceding at the very right hand of God as the true priest and high priest of the world. If you want to look that up, look at Romans chapter 8, or the wonderful story of Stephen, and while he's being stoned, he sees Jesus standing at the very right hand of God in Acts chapter 7. Or of course the letter to the Hebrews, which is full of the imagery and language of the Jewish temple, and of Jesus being the new high priest for the world. So Jesus the priest, praying for us, not a million miles away in some remote building, but right here, right now, in our midst, wanting the very best for us and for the world. That's what Jesus is doing right now. The second thing is that in Matthew's Gospel at chapter 28, it talks about all authority, says Jesus, has been given to me in heaven and on earth. And he talks about that in the present tense, in other words, right at the moment of his ascension. So we might get the idea that Jesus might be Lord of heaven, in charge of heaven. But how in the world is he in charge of the earth when we see all the things that are going on? Pandemics, football clubs, the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer. all the manner of other injustices that seem to be happening in the world. It doesn't seem to add up. But here's the thing. It seems to be that Jesus' understanding of power may not be how we understand power. His power comes like the sower sowing seed, hoping and dreaming that kindness, love will blossom and grow into wonderful new creation and his kingdom. In other words, it's an upside down power, not authority over everybody, but actually a servant ministry under everybody. That's how God sees it, and it's beautiful. And as we seek to pray and think and discern what sort of church we want to be and what sort of new world God would want it to be, I think the Ascension gives us a really clear insight into the very heart of God. And that's something to think about.